Daniel was a single father who lived in a small apartment with his little daughter, Lily. Life had not been easy for him. Every day felt like a struggle between paying rent, buying groceries, and making sure Lily had everything she needed for school. He loved his daughter more than anything in the world, but sometimes he worried about the future. How long could he keep living like this? He had been waiting for one chance, one opportunity to finally give Lily a better life. That chance came when he was called for a job interview. It wasn't just any job, it was steady work with good pay, the kind that could change everything for them. For nights leading up to the interview, Daniel practiced his answers in front of the mirror. He laid out his only clean shirt, the one he wore only for important occasions, and polished his worn-out shoes until they shined just a little. Lily watched him with excitement, sensing how much this meant. "Daddy, will we be rich if you get the job?" she asked with innocent eyes. Daniel smiled, pulling her close. "Not rich, sweetheart, but we'll have enough. Enough to not worry all the time. Enough for ice cream whenever you want." Her giggle was enough to melt away his worries for the night. He tucked her in and whispered, "Tomorrow is the big day." The morning arrived, bright and full of hope. Daniel held Lily's hand as they walked together. He had no car, so they depended on buses and long walks. He checked his watch nervously, calculating every minute. The interview was across town, and he knew being late could ruin everything. His heart beat faster with both nerves and excitement. As they neared the main road, Daniel noticed something unusual. A sleek black car was pulled over to the side, its hazard lights blinking. Next to it, a woman stood looking helpless. She was dressed smartly, but her hands were shaking as she tried to fix a flat tire. Cars rushed past without slowing down. Daniel felt a knot in his stomach. He glanced at his watch again. Every second counted. If he stopped now, he might miss the interview. If he kept going, the woman would be left alone on the road. Lily tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy," she looked sad. Daniel knelt down to meet her eyes. "Sweetheart, we really need to get to the interview, but you always tell me to help people," she said softly. Her words hit him harder than anything else. She was right. What kind of father would he be if he ignored someone in need? Daniel sighed deeply, knowing what this could cost him. He gave Lily a quick smile and said, "All right, let's go help." They walked toward the car. The woman looked up, startled but relieved. "Oh, thank goodness. I've been stuck here for almost an hour. My phone died, and no one stopped." Daniel nodded politely. "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. The sun beat down as he loosened the bolts and lifted the heavy tire. His hands were already tired from years of odd jobs, but he didn't complain. Lily stood nearby, holding a small bottle of water and passing it to her dad whenever he paused. The woman watched quietly. There was something about the way Daniel worked with patience, focus, and kindness that caught her attention. He never once asked for anything in return. When the new tire was finally in place, Daniel wiped the sweat from his forehead. "There you go. You should be fine now." The woman reached for her purse. "Please, let me pay you. You've saved me today." Daniel shook his head. "No need for that. Just glad you're safe." But as he looked at his watch, his heart sank. The interview time had passed. He had missed it. Lily noticed his expression and slipped her tiny hand into his. "Daddy, I'm proud of you." Daniel smiled faintly, trying to hide his disappointment. "Sometimes, doing the right thing is more important than anything else," he said quietly. The woman looked at him thoughtfully, as if memorizing every word. She introduced herself as Claire, but didn't say much more. There was something graceful about her, but Daniel was too caught up in his own thoughts to notice. He had chosen kindness, but at what cost? As they walked away, Daniel carried Lily on his shoulders. He tried to stay cheerful for her sake, though inside he wondered if he had just thrown away their only chance at a better life. Daniel walked home slowly with Lily that evening, his mind heavy with regret. The job interview had been more than just a meeting, it had been hope. Now, all he could think about was the chance slipping away like sand through his fingers. But he forced himself to smile whenever Lily looked up at him. She was too young to understand how badly they needed that job. And Daniel didn't want her to carry his worries. At dinner, they ate simple food, bread with soup. Lily swung her feet under the table and hummed happily as if nothing was wrong. "Daddy," she said between bites, "do you think that lady is okay now?" Daniel paused, spoon in midair. "Yes, sweetheart. She's fine now, and she was very pretty, wasn't she?" Lily added with a cheeky smile. Daniel chuckled. "Yes, I suppose she was." But behind the smile, his thoughts wandered. Who was she? She hadn't looked like an ordinary person stranded on the road. Her clothes, her car, her confidence, it all seemed far beyond the world he knew. After putting Lily to bed, Daniel sat by the window in the small apartment. The city lights flickered outside, but inside it was quiet. He replayed the moment when he checked his watch, knowing he was late, but still chose to help. He didn't regret helping, but he couldn't shake off the fear of failing his daughter. "What if I can't provide for her?" he whispered to himself. The next morning, Daniel woke up with no plans. He had already received a polite rejection email for missing the interview. He sighed, folded the email closed, and focused on making breakfast for Lily. Just as he was about to walk her to school, his phone rang. The number was unknown. Daniel almost ignored it, but something inside him made him answer. "Hello?" he said, cautious. "Is this Daniel?" A familiar voice asked. "Yes." "Who's this?" "This is Claire. We met yesterday on the road." Daniel froze. His heart skipped a beat. "Oh, yes. You're the lady with the flat tire." "That's right," she said warmly. "Listen, I've been thinking about what you did. You gave up something important to help me. That's rare. I'd like to see you again if you're willing." Daniel frowned, confused. "See me again? For what?" "Let's just say, a conversation. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning?" She gave him an address in the city center. "And bring Lily if you'd like." He hesitated. Part of him worried this was some kind of mistake. Why would a stranger want to see him again? But something about her voice was steady, genuine. He agreed quietly. "All right, I'll come." The following day, Daniel dressed as neatly as he could. His shirt was still the same one he had prepared for the interview, though a bit wrinkled now. Lily wore her favorite dress, skipping happily beside him as they made their way into the tall glass building downtown. The place was enormous, far different from anywhere Daniel had ever been. At the front desk, the receptionist smiled. "Mr. Daniel, Ms. Donovan is expecting you." Daniel blinked. "Ms. Donovan?" "Yes," the receptionist nodded. "The CEO." The word echoed in his mind. CEO. He turned to Lily, who squeezed his hand with excitement. They followed the receptionist up the elevator to the top floor. When the doors opened, Claire was there waiting. She looked completely different in her sharp suit, radiating authority. Yet her smile was the same when he remembered. "Daniel," she greeted warmly. "And Lily, I'm glad you came." Lily waved cheerfully. Daniel felt out of place in the polished office, but Claire guided them in with kindness. Her office was grand, with wide windows overlooking the city. For a moment, Daniel wondered what someone like her wanted with someone like him. "I need to explain something," Claire said, taking a seat. "Yesterday, you didn't just help me. You showed me something most people forget: kindness without expecting anything back. I've built my company on people who care, not just about profits, but about people. And you, Daniel, showed me that kind of heart." Daniel shifted uneasily. "I appreciate that, but I don't really understand." She leaned forward. "I know you missed your job interview because of me, and I know you need work. So I'd like to offer you a position here at my company." Daniel's eyes widened. "What? Here? But I don't have the qualifications for a place like this." Claire smiled. "You underestimate yourself. I don't need someone with a perfect resume. I need someone I can trust, someone with honesty, patience, and responsibility." "That's you," Lily gasped, clapping her hands. "Daddy, she wants to give you a job." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck, overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Claire replied gently, "because I believe in giving chances to people who deserve them." For a long moment, Daniel sat in silence. He thought about all the nights he had prayed for an opportunity, all the times he had feared failing his daughter. Could this really be happening? Could a small act of kindness really lead to something this big? Finally, he looked at Lily's shining eyes and then back at Claire. "All right," he said softly. "I accept." Claire nodded, satisfied. "Welcome to the team, Daniel." For the first time in years, Daniel felt the weight on his shoulders lighten. What he thought was the end of hope had turned into a new beginning. And deep down, he knew one thing for sure: sometimes helping a stranger changes more than just their life. It changes yours too. Daniel left the tall building that day with Lily's small hand gripping his tightly. His mind was still spinning, trying to make sense of everything that had happened inside. A CEO had just offered him a job. Not because of a resume, not because of a recommendation, but because of who he was. As they walked down the busy street, Lily was practically skipping. "Daddy, did you hear her? You have a job now." And her office was so big. Did you see the view? It looked like the whole city was under her window. Daniel smiled at her excitement, though inside he was still cautious. It almost felt too good to be true. He had been let down so many times before that part of him worried this might vanish like a dream. Still, there was hope in his heart now, and that was something he hadn't felt in a long while. That night, he cooked Lily's favorite meal, spaghetti with extra cheese. They didn't have much, but tonight it felt like a celebration. Lily twirled noodles around her fork and said, "Maybe one day we'll live in a house with windows like hers." Daniel chuckled. "Maybe one day, but even if we don't, I promise you'll always have everything you need." The next morning, Daniel reported to the office as Claire had instructed. He wore the same shirt again, carefully ironed this time, and polished his shoes once more. He still looked out of place among the sharply dressed staff, but when the receptionist greeted him with "Good morning, Mr. Daniel," he stood a little taller. Claire met him in the lobby and walked him through the building. She introduced him to different teams, explaining how each department worked. People looked at him curiously. He wasn't the kind of hire they were used to seeing, but Claire's confidence in him gave him strength. Finally, she brought him into a modest office. It wasn't fancy, but it had a desk, a computer, and most importantly, stability. "This will be your space," Claire said. "I want you to start by assisting with operations. You'll learn as you go. Don't worry about making mistakes. You'll have support." Daniel looked around, overwhelmed. He had never had a proper office before. Most of his life had been filled with jobs that barely kept him afloat, loading trucks, washing dishes, fixing things for neighbors. Sitting in this room felt like stepping into another world. "I don't know how to thank you," he said sincerely. Claire smiled. "Just do the same thing here that you did on that road. Help when no one else will. That's all I ask." Over the next few weeks, Daniel adjusted to his new life. It wasn't easy. There were terms he didn't understand, software he had never used, and meetings where he felt out of place. But he worked harder than anyone else, staying late to learn, asking questions, and taking notes. Slowly, he began to earn the respect of his co-workers. Some admired his dedication, while others whispered that he didn't belong. But Daniel ignored the whispers. Every time he walked through the door and saw Lily's drawing taped to his desk, Daddy's new job, he remembered why he was there. Claire often checked in on him, sometimes surprising him with small words of encouragement. "You're doing well," she would say. "Don't doubt yourself." Those simple words pushed him forward. One Friday afternoon, Daniel stayed late, finishing up a report that someone else had left incomplete. As he typed, he overheard two employees in the hallway. "Why does she even keep him around?" One muttered, "He's not like us. He doesn't have the background." "Yeah," the other replied. "I heard he was just some guy who changed her tire." That's not exactly resume material. Daniel's hands froze on the keyboard. Their words stung. Though he tried to brush them off, he knew they didn't see what Claire saw in him. Still, it reminded him how fragile his place here was. That night, as he walked home with Lily, he stayed unusually quiet. She noticed, of course. "Daddy, why are you sad?" He forced a smile. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. Just tired." But Lily tilted her head. "You're always strong, Daddy. You helped that lady when no one else did. You can do this too." Her innocent confidence made him laugh softly. "You really believe in me, don't you? Always," she said proudly. The following Monday, Daniel returned with fresh determination. Instead of letting doubt eat away at him, he decided to prove himself through actions. He volunteered for extra projects, offered to help colleagues, and even fixed a broken office printer when no one else could. Bit by bit, those who had doubted him began to see his value. One afternoon, Claire invited him to sit in on a leadership meeting. At first, he felt out of place among the sharp suits and polished words. But when a discussion about community outreach came up, Daniel spoke. He shared ideas about helping local families, simple, practical suggestions based on his own experiences. To his surprise, the room went quiet, and then people nodded in agreement. Claire smiled knowingly at him, as if to say, "This is why you're here." Walking out of that meeting, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years: belonging. For the first time, he believed he wasn't just surviving anymore. He was building a future. That night, as Lily colored at the kitchen table, she asked, "Daddy, do you like your job now?" Daniel smiled, watching her with pride. "Yes, sweetheart. I think this is the start of something good." And deep down, he knew the truth. What had begun as a single act of kindness on the side of a road was now shaping the course of their lives in ways he had never imagined. Daniel's life slowly began to change in small but meaningful ways. The steady paycheck meant he could finally pay rent on time and even buy Lily a new pair of shoes without worrying about skipping bills. For the first time in years, he felt the air in his chest lighten. Life wasn't perfect, but it was no longer a constant fight for survival. Still, he never forgot that this chance had come from an unusual place. Whenever he walked into Claire's office for updates or quick check-ins, he couldn't help but feel a quiet gratitude. She didn't treat him like someone who owed her. She treated him like someone who belonged. That, more than anything, gave him the courage to keep learning and growing. One late afternoon, Claire called him into her office. Her desk was covered with papers, and she looked more tired than usual. Yet when she saw Daniel step in, her expression softened. "Daniel," she said, gesturing to a chair, "how are you settling in?" He sat down, careful not to seem too relaxed. "It's been a lot to learn, but I'm managing. I'm grateful, really." Claire studied him for a moment, as though weighing something. "You know, not everyone agreed with me about bringing you in. Some people thought I was making a mistake, but I don't regret it." Daniel looked down at his hands. "I've heard whispers, people saying I don't belong here." Her eyebrows lifted. "And do you believe them?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "I used to, but not anymore. I know I can do this. I just need time." Claire smiled faintly. "That's what I wanted to hear. Time is what you'll have." For Daniel, those words were more than comfort, they were a promise. Meanwhile, Lily was thriving too. She loved visiting the office on weekends when Daniel had to catch up on work. She would sit at his desk, coloring or talking to the staff, her cheerful nature melting away any stiffness in the air. Even those who once doubted Daniel began to soften toward him because of her. "She's got your smile," one co-worker told him, and Daniel carried that compliment for days. But with change also came challenges. Daniel noticed how hard Claire worked. She arrived before everyone and left long after the lights were dim. She rarely mentioned her personal life, but her eyes sometimes carried a loneliness he recognized. It was strange on the surface. She had everything, yet there was something about her that made Daniel think she understood what it felt like to be alone. One evening, as Daniel was about to leave, he saw Claire sitting at her desk with her head resting on her hand. Papers were scattered everywhere. He hesitated at the door, then knocked gently. "Still working?" he asked. She looked up, a little startled, then smiled tiredly. "The work never ends. Maybe you need someone to remind you to take breaks," Daniel said lightly. She chuckled. "Maybe I do." They spoke for a few minutes, not about business, but about life. She asked about Lily, and Daniel shared small stories: how she wanted to learn to ride a bike, how she loved drawing pictures of houses with gardens. Claire listened with genuine interest, her face softening in a way Daniel rarely saw during the day. "You're a good father," she said quietly. Daniel blinked, caught off guard. "I just try my best." "Your best is more than enough," she replied. That night, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about her words. He had spent so long feeling like a failure that hearing those simple affirmations felt almost unreal. As weeks turned into months, Daniel's role in the company grew. He began handling responsibilities that once intimidated him, and to his surprise, he thrived. He learned to lead small teams, organize schedules, and solve problems others overlooked. The same patience he had shown on the roadside was now shaping the way he worked in the office. Yet, despite the progress, doubts still surfaced occasionally. Sometimes he would catch colleagues watching him with curiosity, as though wondering why someone like him was chosen. But instead of shrinking, Daniel used it as motivation. Let them wonder, he told himself. I'll let my work answer. One day, Claire called a meeting with the senior team and asked Daniel to join. The room was filled with polished suits, expensive watches, and sharp words. Daniel sat quietly at first, listening. But when a heated debate arose about how to approach a new community project, Daniel spoke up. What if, he began carefully, we think about what families actually need, instead of what looks good on paper? Sometimes the simplest help, like school supplies or after-school programs, makes the biggest difference. The room went silent for a moment. Then, one by one, heads nodded. Claire looked directly at him with pride. That's exactly the perspective we need, she said. Walking out of that meeting, Daniel felt taller. He wasn't just an outsider anymore, he was contributing, shaping something larger than himself. That evening, back at home, Lily wrapped her arms around him. Daddy, you're smiling so much these days. Daniel laughed softly, lifting her into his arms. That's because life is finally giving us a chance. What he didn't know was that this was only the beginning. Claire had more faith in him than he realized, and the journey ahead would test not only his skills, but his heart as well. Daniel was slowly finding his rhythm in the new world he had stepped into. Weeks rolled into months, and his once shaky confidence began to grow steady. Every morning, he left the apartment with a sense of purpose, and every evening he came home with a tired but fulfilled smile. For the first time, Lily saw her father not just as the man who worked endlessly to keep them afloat, but as someone moving toward a brighter future. But along with progress came pressure. One afternoon, Claire handed him a new responsibility. It was a project that involved coordinating with several departments, a task normally given to someone with years of experience. Daniel looked at the file, his throat tightening. Are you sure about this? He asked. Claire leaned back in her chair. I am. You've earned this, and I think you're ready. Her faith in him was both comforting and terrifying. He spent nights poring over the details, scribbling notes, and learning from anyone willing to explain things. At work, he asked questions that others might have been embarrassed to ask, but he didn't care. Every step he took was for Lily, and the thought of failing her was far scarier than the thought of failing Claire. The first few weeks were rough. Miscommunications happened, deadlines felt too close, and Daniel often left the office long after everyone else had gone home. Still, he refused to give up, and slowly, things started coming together. His co-workers noticed his persistence, and their attitude began to shift. Where there had once been whispers of doubt, there was now quiet respect. Through it all, Claire kept a watchful eye. She never hovered, but her presence was steady. Every so often, she would ask, "How's it going?" And her tone carried more than business, it carried trust. Daniel realized she wasn't just testing his skills. She was shaping him, pushing him to see what he was capable of. One Friday evening, after finishing another long day, Daniel walked into the lobby to find Lily waiting for him with Claire. His daughter was holding a paper bag full of pastries. "Daddy," she cried, running to hug him. "Claire took me to the bakery while we waited for you." Daniel's eyebrows lifted. "You didn't have to," he began, looking at Claire. "She wanted to surprise you," Claire replied with a small smile. "Besides, I needed a break too." The three of them sat together in the lobby, sharing warm pastries as the office slowly emptied. It felt almost like a family moment, though none of them said it aloud. Daniel noticed the way Lily leaned against Claire comfortably, and the way Claire seemed softer, less guarded. When she was around the little girl, that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Daniel found himself staring at the ceiling. There was something shifting in his life, not just at work, but in the quiet spaces between. Claire wasn't just his boss anymore, she was becoming a presence in Lily's world, and in his. He didn't know what to make of it, but he knew it mattered. The following week brought new challenges. A sudden problem arose in the project Daniel was managing. A supplier had failed to deliver on time, threatening the entire schedule. Panic spread through the team, and some looked to Daniel with doubt again. Maybe this is too big for him, someone muttered. But Daniel didn't back down. He remembered the long nights he had spent fixing things in his past jobs, the way he had learned to survive with nothing but persistence. He called the supplier directly, negotiated calmly, and managed to get a partial delivery that kept the project moving. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to keep things afloat. When he presented the solution in the meeting, Claire looked at him with quiet pride. "That's leadership," she said simply. The words stayed with him all day. Leadership. He had never thought of himself that way. He had only ever thought of himself as a father trying to survive. But now, maybe, he was becoming more at home. Lily noticed the change too. "Daddy, you stand taller now," she said one evening while coloring at the table. Daniel laughed softly. "Do I?" "Yes," she nodded. "Like you're not scared anymore." He thought about her words long after she had gone to bed. Maybe she was right. Maybe he wasn't as scared anymore. One weekend, Claire invited Daniel and Lily to a community event sponsored by the company. It was held at a local park, filled with families, food stalls, and music. Daniel was nervous at first, unsure how people would see him outside the office. But Lily tugged him forward, her excitement contagious. Claire was there too, moving easily among people, yet always circling back toward them. At one point, she crouched down to talk to Lily about her drawings, and Daniel watched with a strange warmth in his chest. Claire wasn't just being kind out of obligation, she truly cared. As the evening sun painted the sky orange, Claire stood beside Daniel, watching families laugh and children play. "You've done well here," she said quietly. Daniel glanced at her. "I'm just trying to do my part." "You're doing more than that," she replied. "You're proving that sometimes the best people for the job aren't the ones with perfect resumes, they're the ones with the right heart." Daniel didn't know how to respond. He only nodded, feeling something stir deep inside him. That night, walking home with Lily asleep in his arms, he whispered to himself, maybe this isn't just a job. Maybe it's the start of something bigger. He didn't know what that something bigger was yet, but he was beginning to feel it take shape, as if life was slowly leading him to a place he never expected. The project Daniel had worked so hard on was nearing completion. What started as a mess of confusion and doubt had slowly turned into something solid, something people could see and admire. For Daniel, it was more than just a work achievement, it was proof that he wasn't just surviving anymore. He was building. But life has a way of testing people right when they think they've found their footing. One Monday morning, Daniel arrived at the office to find the air unusually tense. Whispers traveled from desk to desk, faces were tight, and phones rang constantly. He asked a colleague what was happening, but the answer was vague. Something big. "Just wait, you'll hear." Not long after, Claire called him into her office. She stood by the window, her arms crossed, staring at the city below. Her face was calm, but her eyes gave away the storm inside. "There's been a problem," she said. Daniel stepped closer. "What kind of problem?" "One of our partners has pulled out of the project. Without them, everything we've built could collapse." The words hit him like a punch. This project had been his chance to prove himself, to show that he deserved the faith Claire had placed in him. Now, all of it was hanging by a thread. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice steady even though his heart raced. Claire turned to face him. "We fight for it, but I can't do it alone. I need you." Daniel had never heard those words from someone like her before. She was powerful, experienced, the kind of person who commanded entire rooms. Yet here she was, telling him she needed him. "I'll do whatever it takes," he said firmly. The next few days were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and negotiations. Daniel worked harder than ever, drawing on every bit of patience and persistence he had. He remembered the nights he had spent fixing things that seemed broken beyond repair. The years of surviving when there was almost nothing left to hold on to. Those same skills, endurance, grit, and quiet determination were what he used now. At one point, after a particularly long day, Daniel found himself sitting in the office kitchen with Claire. Both of them were exhausted, sipping coffee in silence. "You know," she said suddenly, "most people would have walked away by now. You're still here," Daniel looked at her, surprised. Walking away has never been an option for me. Not when Lily depends on me. Claire's expression softened. She's lucky to have you. He gave a small smile. I'm the lucky one. The way she looked at him then lingered with him long after they left the kitchen. It wasn't just admiration, it was something deeper, something unspoken. But before Daniel could make sense of it, the crisis reached its peak. The final decision about the project would be made in a high-stakes meeting with the remaining partners. If they pulled out, everything would fall apart. On the morning of the meeting, Daniel's nerves were worse than they'd ever been. He had faced job interviews, rejection letters, even nights of wondering how to feed his daughter, but this felt bigger. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about everyone depending on the project. Claire noticed his unease as they prepared. She placed a hand on his shoulder. Remember why you're here. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be real. That's what people listen to. Her words gave him courage. Inside the boardroom, the atmosphere was cold and sharp. The partners questioned everything: budgets, timelines, risks. At first, Daniel stayed quiet, letting Claire handle the responses. But when one partner dismissed the project entirely, saying it was too risky for families to benefit, something inside him stirred. He spoke up, his voice steady. With respect, you're wrong. Families like mine, families who struggle every day, need this project. You talk about risk, but I've lived it. I've lived what it means to have nothing. And I can tell you this. What we're building isn't just numbers on a page. It's hope. And hope is worth the risk. The room fell silent. For a moment, Daniel worried he had spoken out of turn. But then he saw the effect his words had. Some faces softened, others shifted uncomfortably, and one by one, the resistance began to crumble. By the end of the meeting, the partners had agreed to stay. The project was saved. When they walked out of the room, Daniel felt the weight of weeks lift off his shoulders. Claire turned to him, her eyes shining. You did that, she said. You turned it around. Daniel shook his head. We did it, but she held his gaze. No, you. I've led many teams, Daniel. But today, you were the one they listened to. You showed them something I couldn't. Her words settled deep in his heart. He had never seen himself as someone who could lead or inspire. Yet in that moment, he realized he was more than he had ever believed. That night, back at home, Lily hugged him tightly when he told her the project was safe. I knew you could do it, Daddy, she whispered. Daniel smiled, his eyes stinging with emotion. You always believe in me, don't you? Always, she said, just as she had before. And as he tucked her into bed, Daniel thought about how far they had come. From a roadside encounter to standing in a boardroom defending hope itself. The journey had been unexpected, difficult, and at times overwhelming. But through it all, one truth became clear: sometimes the greatest opportunities don't come from chasing them. They come when you choose to do the right thing, even when it costs you everything. And for Daniel, that choice had changed his life forever. The weeks after the boardroom victory felt different. The office, once a place where Daniel felt like an outsider, now greeted him with nods, smiles, and respect. People who had once whispered about him now came to him for advice. He wasn't just the man who happened to help Claire on the roadside anymore. He was part of the company, part of something bigger. At home, life was changing too. With his steady job, Daniel could finally give Lily small luxuries he had always wanted for her. A new backpack for school, her favorite cereal without worrying about the price, and even a used bicycle that made her squeal with joy when she saw it. Every time she pedaled through the courtyard, her laughter echoed like music, reminding him why all of this mattered. But what surprised him most wasn't the money or the new respect, it was the bond growing quietly between him and Claire. Their conversations had become less about work and more about life. Sometimes she would stop by his office just to ask how Lily was doing. Other times, she'd share little pieces of her own life, things she rarely revealed to anyone else. One evening, Daniel stayed late to finish paperwork. As he prepared to leave, he saw Claire still at her desk, the city lights glowing behind her. He knocked lightly. You should go home, he said. She looked up, smiling faintly. You too. For a moment, they just stood there, silence stretching between them. Then Claire spoke softly. Do you ever think about how strange it is? One flat tire, And here we are. Daniel chuckled quietly. Strange, yes, but maybe it wasn't an accident. Maybe it was meant to happen. She held his gaze for a moment, her eyes thoughtful. Maybe it was. There was something unspoken in the air, something that neither of them tried to define. But both of them felt it. As months passed, Daniel's role in the company expanded. He was trusted with larger projects, and soon, he wasn't just assisting, he was leading. His ideas were valued, his voice carried weight, and his perspective shaped by real struggles gave the company a depth it hadn't had before. Yet, no matter how far he came, Daniel never forgot who he was or where he started. He still walked Lily to school every morning. He still made dinner at home, still read bedtime stories, still reminded her that love and honesty mattered more than anything else. The new job hadn't changed him, it had simply given him the chance to be more of who he already was. Then came a day Daniel would never forget. The company hosted a large event to celebrate the success of the project that had once been on the verge of collapse. Employees, partners, and community members gathered in a grand hall. Daniel stood near the back at first, content to watch. But when Claire stepped onto the stage to give her speech, she called his name. Daniel, she said, her voice carrying through the room. I want everyone here to know about the man who reminded us what leadership really means. He didn't come to us with a perfect resume or years of corporate experience. He came with integrity, with compassion, and with courage. And because of that, he helped save this project and changed this company for the better. The audience clapped, and Daniel felt heat rise to his face. He walked up to the stage, unsure of what to say. Claire handed him the microphone, her eyes shining with pride. He cleared his throat, looking out at the crowd. I don't know what to say. I never imagined I'd be standing here. A year ago, I was just trying to find a job to support my daughter. When I stopped to help someone on the side of the road, I thought I was losing that chance. But what I've learned is that sometimes, the things we think are setbacks are actually doors opening. His voice grew steadier as he continued. I didn't do this alone. Claire believed in me when she didn't have to. And Lily, my daughter, she believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. So if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: never underestimate the power of kindness. You never know where it might lead. The applause that followed was louder than anything he'd ever heard. But what mattered most to him was the sight of Lily, clapping with all her might, her smile wide and proud. After the event, as people mingled, Claire approached him quietly. You did well, she said. Daniel shook his head with a small laugh. I just spoke the truth. That's exactly why it mattered, she replied. They stood there for a moment, the noise of the crowd fading around them. For Daniel, it felt like the final piece of a journey he never expected to take. He had started as a man barely holding on, and now he stood as someone others looked up to. And all of it began with one decision: to stop, to help, to choose kindness over ambition. That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she whispered, Daddy, I think you're a hero. Daniel kissed her forehead gently. No, sweetheart, I'm just your dad. That's the only hero I ever want to be. And as he turned off the light, Daniel smiled. His life had been rewritten not by chance, but by choice, the choice to be kind. And that choice had led him, and Lily, into a future brighter than he ever dreamed.